In this episode of Supply Chain Unlocked, we delve into the intricate world of supply chain management and the pivotal role of AI in transforming this industry. Today, we have the pleasure of hosting Richard Goins. He is the Vice President of DOT Compliance at MyFleetAI. With a rich background in transportation and safety compliance, Richard brings invaluable insights into how AI is reshaping safety protocols and operational efficiency. We'll explore the challenges and opportunities that lie ahead in every evolving landscape of transportation and how businesses can leverage AI to stay ahead. So sit back and join us as we unlock the secrets of supply chain with Richard Goins. Let's get into it.
You're listening to Supply Chain Unlocked. Get exclusive insights from industry leaders on overcoming challenges, mastering logistics, and scaling your business with precision. Brought to you by X7AI.
Our audience knows what we're here for. Good insights into some supply chain businesses. Richard and I had a pre-podcast meeting to discuss this, and he got me real excited about safety, compliance, etc. It doesn't seem like an exciting topic, but frankly it is from my perspective, because it's the impact it can have to your business if you don't have these kinds of insights. I think, Richard, would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Operations brings in the profit, and failure to be safe and compliant can suck it all away in a heartbeat.
Yep, you got that right. So let's start with Richard. Why'd you take this call with me, or why did you want to be on the podcast?
I'm constantly looking for new venues where I can gather industry information, make relevant contacts. This looked like a good opportunity to do that. Maybe get some of the things out there in the ether that I'm concerned with that I would like people in the industry to know.
Excellent. Give us your background, and usually I give some guidance here. It doesn't have to be perfect. How'd you get into the supply chain business, or did it start before the supply chain career, if you will? And then how you ended up at MyFleet AI.
Well, my father was a truck driver, so I grew up in it. About the time I was 18, I was working in the transportation industry. I got my CDL when I was 21. I'm not going to give you a date on that. And I drove truck for several years. Ended up every place I would go to work, I would end up getting asked to work in the office, dispatch, warehousing, whatever. And ultimately, I ended up a fleet manager for a concrete outfit in Eugene, Oregon. It was a fairly big operation, 3 plants, dozens of drivers, and a bulk operation. And I did that until 2004. And there I started learning a lot about safety, regulatory compliance, whether it be OSHA or the DOT or MSHA. And I had some great interest in that. And inexplicably, at that time, I ended up accepting a position with Kellogg Brown and Root hauling fuel in Iraq through 2004, which I'm not going to even try to explain why I did that. But when I came back, went back to work in the transportation industry, I enjoyed it less than I had before. And I ultimately, after being bumped around a bit, I decided I was going to go back to school and I was going to get out of the trucking industry. I ultimately attained a associate's degree in business, and the first people who looked at recruiting me happened to be the Oregon Department of Transportation for a safety compliance specialist. And I'd been interested in safety since back in, I think, 98. And I accepted the position thinking, I've got 20 years in the business. There's no reason to burn it. And this has got me out of a truck, and it's a new role. And so I worked for a couple of years as a truck inspector in northeastern Oregon at a port of entry. And ultimately, I ended up accepting an investigator slot and went to work doing compliance reviews, safety audits, still doing truck inspections. I ended up on a special operations team for the state, going all over the state doing hours of service operations. And I was a post-crash investigator. I retired from there in 22 and moved to the Midwest to be with family. Frankly, I love that position. I probably never would have left it, but you got grandkids, you're going to go where they're at least that's what I'm going to do. And I ultimately started working as a independent consultant for safety and compliance, and met this gentleman, John Davis, the owner of MyFleetAI, and we started working together about 3 years ago. And ultimately, he hired me just a little over a year ago to be the Vice President of DOT Compliance. That's the rough path to how I got here.
Well, I think you got the experience to have a VP role, and the reason I say that is often you get above that director role, and it seems like they either didn't have real time in service. But I shouldn't put it that way. I don't want to offend anybody, but at the end of the day, you really earned your stripes to be a VP, frankly, and you got that experience, real experience to be in this role. I don't mean
Thank
that
you.
to try to make you feel good. It just sounds like it's the facts.
I appreciate that.
Uh, Said differently, you earned it. Mm.
It feels that way.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more, or tell us a little bit more about MyFleet AI. Without, I have a tendency to go to like ChatGPT or Claude and start reading your profile. In your words, what does MyFleet AI do for customers? One thing that I got out of reading about you guys was you're not looking to start somebody from scratch all the time. It's picking up where they left off or picking them up on an existing program, things like that.
Right. Well, what we do is we integrate several different systems, such as either Motive or Lytics, into our system. It's called Safe, and their data runs directly into Safe, and we use that data to identify problem drivers, identify trends. We handle not really the disciplinary side. We do provide auto coaching, remedial training to the drivers who have consistent problems in one area. That all happens just pretty much blind to the client, other than the drivers are getting emails, contact from us. We provide insight as to regulations, which is my job is largely the ancillary portions. So I help with trucking and inspections, safety audits. I help with post-crash investigations, all dispute crashes for the clients. But largely what we do is we take all of the safety data that would normally take 8, 9, depending on the size of the client, sometimes 25 people, and we replace that with the AI. The AI is not currently at a place where you can just plug it and walk off. So there have to be experienced people online checking it constantly. But we replace a lot of the busy work for safety staff, whether it be driver maintenance files or what's the word I'm looking for here. So we also replace a lot of the training. So we have our own training app that goes out to the drivers. We have our own pre-trip app, and it all integrates into Safe and becomes part of whatever systems you're currently using.
I got you. Then, what are some of the trends that you look at within the applications? And let me take a step back. MyFleet AI is really a tech stack that's got AI built into it. Is that roughly correct? Or are you just
That is
using a layer of AI with the customer's existing systems?
it. I think the latter. We use a level of AI within the customer's existing systems. Those systems that we accept, for instance, there's some systems out there that we won't accept just because they're not, they're either not compatible or they're not reliable. If somebody has a system that has been proven to have problems with the DOT, shutting them down, we won't even integrate to it.
Oh, well, what's the point? Is that really it? Is that the
Right.
point?
Well, a lot of the people who are using those systems aren't particularly interested in our service anyway.
I got you. So let's jump to safety. How does the AI or your systems and your approach differ from others? And then the impact that it helps with companies.
Well, I think that ours is different. One, as I look at it, it's a lot less expensive. It's more dependent on the AI. It's more scalable. We have clients that go from, let's say, 5-truck operations where the owner's an operator that just happen to buy a few trucks and they rely on us for compliance, to clients that have over 1,000 trucks. We have some very prevalent contracting clients within the um, parcel space. So we have very large clients that depend on us for the scaling issue. We have very small clients that depend on us for the regulatory compliance issues, understanding regulations, things like that. We also, in the camera integration, we look at all of the collisions, accidents. We monitor them not just for whether or not they're taking place, but who caused it, how it could have been prevented, and we provide coaching post-accident.
I gotcha. And then give us some of the impact, if you will. Maybe, and I think this goes to your previous experience before MyFleet AI, as well as your experience now working in a tech company that's assisting these fleets around impact. It's, I've been in and around trucking, supply chain, warehousing for, I guess, 17 years now. And it's interesting to me how there's a certain segment of companies that try to just skirt safety and compliance. And when you do that, what are some examples of the impact? Maybe not the extreme ones, but more of the middle of the road ones that people are missing out on what the impacts can be and the cost of time and money.
Well, I'd say that the biggest thing that I talk to my clients about who, they're not necessarily trying to skirt it. It's a situation where maybe they don't completely understand it from the big picture standpoint. Is a simple act like close following doesn't seem like that big of a deal. But from a liability standpoint, you can go from $1 million in profit to zero from a single impact. So you have, if you don't know what's happening, one, you're not going to know to stop it. If you know what's happening and you don't know anything about it, the attorneys are going to help you stop it. Plaintiff's attorneys are one of the larger impacts. Obviously, the safety injured people are the largest, but we point to that. And our client, well, we'll give you, for instance, we have a very large client who has a lot of contractors that work for them, and their book of business generally starts coming to us once they're in trouble. So their book of business is about 50% or less compliant. And the book of business that we have of their clients is more along the lines of 85% compliant. That's the impact that we have.
So they're really looking to just be in compliance and
Being
something that is,
compliance, and it isn't just the compliance piece of the puzzle, it's who's having crashes, who's having results that are negative.
I got you.
Our clients have considerably fewer crashes, less severe crashes. And that's one thing about our system is it takes each piece of data. And as you know, AI is really good at splitting up data and classifying it in any way you want it. So we have data, for instance, that has an impact on our clients, and it's how many people are speeding, how often does that speeding result in an issue, and we go all the way down to where are these results happening. So we have, for instance, we've got intersections we've used our data to route our clients around that. We don't do the dispatching, but we point out that this particular area has a high crash zone for drivers, commercial motor vehicles, and we can show them how to route around it. That's a big impact.
Well, I never even thought about that. I've been around a lot of ELD systems, dispatch systems. When I say that, I shouldn't say a lot. I'm going to call it like 15 to 20. And I don't know of any of them that has that. Stay out of this, that general intersection, something like that. If you can provide that, that's definitely unique from my perspective. Do you
Oh,
see
and we
that
do
in
this.
this stuff? Go ahead.
This is the only place I've seen it. We even go as far as we rank the data for truck inspections. For instance, if you've got a scale somewhere that consistently writes a violation, I evaluate the inspections. I look for operational policy guidances that are the inspectors in that area following operational policy. We let our clients know if you're going to pass through this area, you better have this right. You also better be able to demonstrate to the enforcement staff what the actual regulation states. So we take all that data, and it might take a little while for each client because we have to track it. We have to look at what they're doing, and it might take us 4 to 6 months to make an impact there, but ultimately it does.
Yeah, so I can picture somebody coming up to a weigh station or inspection point of any nature. And are you speaking like after the infraction is now a ticket, if you will, and then you're helping the customer go out and fight the infraction?
Yes, we don't actually help them in court. So this is one of the things I want people to know the most is that a ticket and a violation are totally different. A
Okay.
warning is totally different. So when you have a roadside truck inspection, you can have a violation without a citation. The citation is a monetary fine to the driver, generally speaking. A warning can be written on the inspection. And what that warning is, it's for the driver to know you're not getting a citation. But if there's a violation listed on a truck inspection, it impacts both the carrier's and the driver's SMS and PSP profile. So it's often the three things are conflated. Um, and you can get a citation without an inspection. You can get an inspection violation without a citation. And it can happen the same way with a warning, and learning what all these things do, how they reach the client. Is it reaching just their SMS profile? Is it affecting their insurance with their driver's MVR? We help with that. And it's one of the things that I spend a lot of time explaining to people about.
Well, it's complex. So it sounds like your business is two pieces. It's not just the efficiency and the automation side. It's also the consultative side. by incident or just generally across their program. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. We take all of the new data, we plug it into the AI's knowledge base. For instance, we teach it the federal motor carrier safety regulations, not just those, but also the guidance. So when somebody sends a letter on a regulation to the feds, and the feds respond and clarify what the regulation means, we'll include that as we get it. Obviously, this is a fairly new endeavor, so we don't have all of it at this time. We probably never will have all of it because it's constantly changing. But that's one of the things that we do. And the AI, at some point, I expect I'm not going to be needed to look at the inspections, because it's going to compare the inspection violation to operational policy and say, no, or you did it.
Yeah. So, all right. So I want to somewhat veer, maybe not veer, but since we're talking about AI, and you'll find this if you watch some of our episodes, so often folks still don't understand some of the basics of AI. And it's very tough to get your head wrapped around it till either you're in the business or you're in the middle of multiple projects. And where I want to take that is, let's use some examples, because it sounds like as you build the model and you feed it more information, does it become more for your customers to be self-reliant or self-serving, that they can go and do the same type of analysis as you're doing using AI?
I think it will get there where it's going to make them more independent. I don't think it's anywhere near there yet, because the AI understands these things from a technical aspect. So I can have it read the operational policy. I can have it read the regulations, but translating that still requires an individual who understands it from our side. We want to hire former enforcement officials right now because they get it from that end. There's a lot of people from the industry itself that we can hire that understand the industry side. The most complex part of all of this is regulatory compliance and safety.
I got you. Well, that's interesting, because I remember back in the .com days, I was working with a healthcare establishment, and they were for people that didn't want to be part of or be a doctor per se anymore. They ended up in a lot of tech companies that I found interesting. And in this case, you guys are looking for enforcement people to build that knowledge from a human perspective, right?
Right. And
Huh.
it's helpful if they're from diverse locations, because while the federal motor carrier safety regulations themselves are consistent, any state that's adopted them is basically saying we're going to use this. The policy under which it is guided is not the same from state to state. So, for instance, in Texas, you see tons and tons of mechanical violations. In the state of Oregon, you see tons and tons of hours of service violations. I happen to work in the state of Oregon. I can tell you why that is with the state of Oregon. They spend an amazing amount of money, time, and effort training their staff to understand not just hours of service rules, but how they're broken most effectively. Texas, I've been to schools in Texas with the DOT, and they understand in great detail not just the maintenance regulations, but the interpretations that have to do with them. And every state does it a little bit different.
I got you. So where do you think AI is the most effective? It sounds like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but AI right now, is it more effective and efficient on just taking the normal automating reoccurring tasks quite a bit? And if that's the case, let's understand some of those examples.
I think the place that it's most effective is gathering, disseminating, and separating out data. So if I want to know one thing, where are the majority of speeding events happening? It can gather that. It can then quickly tell me which drivers. It does handle a lot of the busy work really well, but its weakness is just a little ancillary difference it doesn't catch yet. At least that's my experience. That might, and to be honest with you, I'm not a tech guy. I went to work here partially because I saw the writing on the wall. I
Yeah.
don't think in 10 years we're going to have safety directors. I think AI is going to do it. But at this time, we're not there. So there's got to be that one in 100 people sitting there guiding it, evaluating it, comparing it with operational policy and interpretations right now. But as far as gathering data and forecasting, it's there.
So it's pretty solid from your perspective.
I believe so. I trust it for that 100%.
So I asked this question of a lot of folks, and this goes back to something Bill Gates said in the late 90s. And it's business at the speed of thought. Business at the speed of thought. And when you say separating out data, what I've found with a lot of whether it's Grok or Gemini or even Chat GPT, it's something that you can go and ask the LLM ad hoc questions, and it's at a minimum going to be 85 to 90% accurate. In other words, you don't have to go ask some IT dude to write a query for you because you wanted to know some special attributes or characteristics around accidents, for instance. You can just go out and type in or prompt, if you will, put a nice prompt against the LLM and get what you need based on the thoughts that you're having at the time. Are you finding that as well on the motor vehicle side?
Absolutely. I'm currently in the midst of writing a couple of books, which sounds odd to say writing a couple. I've had notes for 20 years on this stuff that were ideas for literature. And I would get so far into a book, and my big problem is I don't like what I've written. So I go back, I read the whole thing, and then I write the next chapter. I gave AI, whether it be ChatGPT or Grok, I've used them both, regularly use ours, a direction to go for writing. And I'm almost done with the first one now, which I've been writing for
Oh, wow.
years. It's not writing it for me. What it's doing is I give it parameters regarding what my thought process is, and I don't have to go back and check. These aren't works of fiction, so the data has to be consistent if I'm making an argument. And I wrote a white paper on ELDs versus Vetter cameras that I'd been writing for a year, and I plugged all my information into it. And although there were little problems with the white paper when it was done, it was completed in a matter of minutes for what I had been doing. Now I input all the data, so it didn't gather the data itself, but it organized it swiftly, and I'm impressed with that. Took well over a year of my effort and consolidated it down in a matter of 10 minutes.
Wow.
And it
It is.
organized it just based on my parameters. And it did it well enough that I was more happy with what it did than anything I'd done before.
I got you. Hey, let's move on to bottlenecks and scaling. For instance, I hate to. I shouldn't say I hate. I have a tendency to lead this question, and I don't want to. And I'm trying to practice not doing this. Where do you see your bottlenecks within your business?
Well, I think the thing that I think about the most is not within my business, but when I was working for the DOT, I've seen the guts of hundreds and hundreds of carriers. Say, speed bumps that they have happen about where me and you have suggested between 50 and 2,000 drivers, scaling up to whether it be maintenance or compliance or safety, which is my focus. So I'm always going to bring those three up. You go from an operation that is originally handled by an owner operator who happened to be good at it and ended up buying multiple trucks. 1 in 100 is good enough to turn it into a real trucking company. Those gain experience, they gain confidence. And when they move past a certain point, it's beyond what they can do. And now they have to hire other staff to do what they've been doing. And that's where it becomes complicated, because to get the right staff, you got to pay for it. You're not at that current time bringing in enough money to pay for it. So
Yeah.
the timing is a big issue. I think that AI can help a lot with that as you organize it. But I see that with anything where the scaling comes up. We're dealing with it right now. We're ready to go from, say, 2,000 to 10,000 next year. When we hit that, we're going to have to put in new facilities, and it's very stressful for us. So I know it's got to be for the trucking company. We're not buying trucks. We're paying for software, computers. They're paying for operational equipment, drivers. And I think one of the other bottlenecks that kills them is not HR, but I'm looking for
Onboarding.
right onboarding.
Yeah. Just attracting and onboarding.
It's really difficult. And the thing is that when they're onboarding people, initially they're very picky. And then they've got 50 drivers and they've got contracts and they're trying to fulfill the contract. And suddenly how picky you are changes to fulfill the operational demand. And it can't if you want to provide the same level of service, the same degree of safety and reliability. So that means ferreting out good people from other good operations. And generally speaking, what you run into is that if you're ferreting out good people from other operations, those operations almost certainly have low turnover. So you're going to have to pay for those people. And getting some contractors and some clients to accept that it's just going to cost more now is difficult.
Is some of that cost more because they're just inefficient at finding new drivers and onboarding them, or which we all want to say, and you can't, and I don't think it's even a debate anymore. There's just not the drivers out there in quantity, much less ones with really good MVRs.
Yeah, I think that's true. Unfortunately, situation with legalization of marijuana, and I'm not one way or the other on it, has complicated that because you have people who have one
Yeah.
feeling about it and don't understand that it doesn't matter if it's legal in your state. You can't use it and operate a commercial motor vehicle currently. I think that that has strangled a lot of operations looking for good people.
Man, I didn't even think about that because they may have one violation with marijuana and now they're screwed
Well,
overall.
so the whole process, the DOT process for somebody who tests positive, refuses to test, they go in and they end up in the federal clearinghouse as prohibited. So once you're prohibited, now you have to go see a safe, they call it a SAP. It's a drug and alcohol professional. What they do is they provide counseling and they assign a program. So once they've seen the SAP, then they can do return to duty test. If they test negative for the return to duty, now they've got sometimes 2 years of ongoing testing. And that's expensive for a company. If the company hires somebody in that process, now they're responsible for managing it.
Ooh,
So, I mean,
didn't
technically
realize
the
that.
driver's the one responsible for managing it. But the process is complicated. It's convoluted. It kind of has to be. I'm not saying that it shouldn't be the way it is because we have to figure out some of the drivers who are habitual users, but it is a difficult thing. And as every state rises, it becomes more complicated and more onerous for the corporations, the companies, the individuals to get through the system. And it paints a driver one way for the plaintiff's attorneys. So you got to weigh, well, yeah, the state says they're good to go. But if this person has an injury crash, what kind of a liability do they represent to the company?
Oh, yeah.
And obviously, not everybody using at some point should be thrown away and not allowed to drive again. I think that that's part of the bottleneck, and it's been created by the difference between state and federal law.
Is that a huge problem? Just marijuana use in general within trucking?
It's enormous. I have some clients, not so much where I'm at now, but before I came on to work and for MyFleetAI, I had a lot of independent clients who had as many as 80% of their drivers currently in return to duty status. So they're going through a program. And so they have, every program has to have random testing. So you get your drivers in a random testing pool. Depending on how big the pool is, you may not have a driver test all year. But if half of your drivers are in a return to duty program, they may have to test 4 times that year. And you have to manage that. It is the responsibility of the driver to manage it, but if the driver didn't and you put them on the road and there's an injury or a fatal crash, there you are.
Is there a way to check compliance, whether that driver is sticking up with the program? Sticking up is in compliance with the program.
So what the feds require is that every carrier do a background through the clearinghouse annually. So there's a limited check and then there's a more serious check if you find something. So every driver has to be checked annually, just like their MVR. But the problem with that is that you could check it and 2 months later, they're out of compliance. So you're almost in this position where you've got to be running it regularly. It depends on how much you trust your drivers. But I mean, the drug and alcohol portion, and I'm not saying they shouldn't have had the clearinghouse. I think it's important because we had a lot of drivers using, and what they would do is they get caught and they just go to another carrier, didn't explain to the new carrier that they worked for this place, and they could just keep going. And the only way anybody found out was an investigator like me comes in, reviews all their drivers, sees that that driver was in a program, and now you've got a driver who shouldn't have been behind the wheel.
When they're in the program, is that shown on the MVR or is it a different place?
That is coming, but technically because of HIPAA, it can't show on the MVR. So there is a clearinghouse where enforcement staff, when they do a truck inspection, they run them in the clearinghouse, and the only thing the enforcement staff can see is prohibited or compliant. So if they're prohibited, they place the driver out of service.
So this is part of the discussion where our audience is going to find really good insight in this. And sometimes people don't want us to get into this conversation because either it gets political, and I don't care about the political part because this is insightful for trucking company owners that they need to know it. And it can be very impactful to their business. So anybody that wants to call me out in the down in the comments about politics, don't care. this, this is stuff you need to know. So
You got to call
again,
it as you see it.
yeah, well, a lot of times people want to politicize this, and this isn't really politics because often they'll be like marijuana. Let's talk about the politics around that. But no, you are speaking specifically to the impact and how it happened. So maybe when we're off air, we'll talk a little bit more in detail to that.
Well, I would like to bring one thing up because you mentioned
Perfect.
it, is
Go ahead.
that it definitely is not political in any way, shape, or form. There might be a politics attached to it outside of this, but this is how it is, and you have to prepare for how it is, not just work for a different situation. I don't know if that makes sense. If it doesn't seem right, that's fine, and we can have that discussion. But if the driver's out of compliance, plaintiff's attorney is going to make hay out of it, and they're going to win.
Meaning, if there's anything like they're on the program and they're not in compliance, if anything happens, that plaintiff's attorney's got an open door now.
Right. It's a chink in the armor.
Yeah. God, that is so tough to for an owner of a business to follow all of these compliances, especially something like this that can be hidden from him or hers, or even HR or anybody, even a driver manager and hiring during the onboarding of finding this.
Well, when you get your DOT number, you sign off on a document somewhere that says, no, and I have read and understand the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. I've spent the last 15 years of my life involved in them, and I don't know and understand the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. So when you accept a DOT number, you're making a pretty big statement when you sign there. And I don't think it's fair because they don't explain that.
Well, that's a little bit like me driving into Carolina Beach and parking my truck the wrong direction, not in the way of traffic, and me getting a $75 ticket.
Right.
But
Not knowing isn't an excuse.
well, they said I was supposed to know the law. Dude, I'm there for 2 days.
I know.
I backed into a parking spot instead of going in forward because I didn't want to stick out in the road, and I drive a F450. So it got me farther back, and they wrote me a ticket for it. And they said, well, you should know that law.
Well, it's hard to, that's one of the big hurdles I overcome is convincing carriers, clients that this is something they need to invest in, because most people don't know they need to invest in it till they're embroiled in something horrible. It seems like, yeah, that's safety. Or when I was an investigator, owners would always tell me, oh, that's safety. You got to talk to my daughter, or my wife handles safety. And I already knew you're going to be unset when I'm done with this investigation.
Yeah.
Because if you as the owner don't deal with it, I promise somebody else isn't going to.
All right, here's a big question based on what you just, or where we're going, I should say, not what you said, what we both said. Does AI help the owner with that? What I mean by that, when these questions come up, or let's just say hypothetically, I get a warning or actually have an infraction, and I type in my chat GBT on my phone when I get to the truck stop to educate myself on what the infraction is and everything with that could I could have to deal with that infraction. But then I got all these other questions that I start asking myself, or my safety officer, my wife or my daughter, in your example, can start having a dialogue to start understanding the FMCSA better. Does AI help with that?
Absolutely. I don't know who did it first, but I remember having this kind of sounds silly, but I have arguments with both Grok and ChatGPT. And what I'm doing is I'm asking it questions that it should know the answer to about regulations. And when it answers them incorrectly, I ask it to read 49 CFR Part B, and it comes back and maybe it's still wrong. And then I ask it, please read the interpretations for 49 CFR. It reads it, it comes back, and now it's right. So it can help with that. You can plug in a checklist of everything that you have on a driver qualification file, and it'll tell you if you're missing something. It can tell you the dates. I strongly suggest people have Excel spreadsheets on this at the very minimum, but you could simply every 30 days send it the checklist of what's on a driver qualification file, and it would tell you if you're in compliance, and it'll be right.
Yeah, and that's another insight for the audience. Being able to start getting your head wrapped around just using any of the AIs or the LLMs like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, all of those to just get your head wrapped around how AI can help you out. And then after you start getting your head wrapped around that, you'll see the value. Maybe I'm just turning into a MyFleetAI salesman, but
Well, I
that's
hope
when you
so.
start realizing how big your freaking problem is
Well,
or
and
the impact.
it will work very well so long as you know what questions to ask.
Yeah.
And that's really my job at this point, is I know what questions to ask. And currently, I'm right more often than it is, but that's not going to last.
Well, when you have
Attorneys,
20 years of
doctors,
experience, you are your own LLM.
doctors, we're all in trouble.
Oh, don't get me
When
started
AI
on
is
the
done.
doctor thing. I made the mistake with one of my clients. Seriously, her and I have been working together for 6 years, I guess. And her daughter's in med school, and her daughter's very well educated. So I said, I go, we've really dug into some AI projects over the last 3 to 4 years. I really see where doctors are a walking database, and I have for my whole life. I really think AI, there's going to be big changes with doctors because AI is a lot faster than a human in depth and breadth of information quickly.
Well, I've
Like a nurse could type that in.
discovered a health issue that I had that no doctor diagnosed over the last 55 years of my life. And the
Yeah.
reason that AI found it is because it's consciously seeking, and I don't like to use that term, but I think you know what I mean, all of the options and all of the possibilities simultaneously, where no human can do that. Oh, they could be the best doctor in the world. We still don't think like that. We don't calculate every single option, which it does.
Yeah. It is well, I can tell you that this individual got a little bit not irate. It created this kind of friction for the next couple of days.
Well, it makes you
All I had
insecure.
to do, well, that's exactly what it is. But the family is also putting in $125,000 a year to go to med school for what the next, whatever it is, 3 to 4 years for med school. And you're telling them that's at risk.
Well, I mean, all of our jobs are to some degree or another, and it requires us, in my opinion, to not be static. So
Yeah.
we can't just remain where we're at. At one time, there was a place for buggy whip manufacturing, and there were people who made entire living off of building buggy whips. Those people went on to do other things after the car, and we're in the same place. We're
Yep.
going to go on to do other things, or and I don't like the idea of this, but I'm going to say it out loud, integrate with AI, not physically, but I think that we can become a partner with it and still maintain the humanity that I don't think it could ever attain.
Yeah, I agree. One thing that I always people ask me what is AI, and I say it is a layer you can add to your business, and it's our same logo to go smarter and faster. What
Right.
that is making your business more effective and efficient, and that goes for your career. So it's here and it works. You better start learning it. That's all there is
Right.
to it. It's
And I
not to
got to tell you,
replace jobs. Sorry, go ahead.
since I started, I've been learning it. I don't want to say geometric rate, but when I left the DOT, I knew a certain amount about the regulations. I know at least 3 times that now
And
because
you've
I
been
can,
going what 3 years, something like that.
yeah, since 22.
Yeah, I mean, you've probably got 5 or 6, 7 years worth of education in 3, something like that,
Yeah, easily.
and that's what blows me away. There was one other I don't know who the hell said this on some podcast. Could you ever envision the first 2 years of college and a 4-year degree not needed?
Yeah,
The reason I
absolutely.
say that is if you jump into your junior year right now, do you really need those first 2 years of the same math, a little bit incremental up, the same kind of format for learning English and writing and everything else? I know there's more to it. It's much more complicated than that. But that is just take those 2 years. And if you could put those in a box and access them when you need to on the fly in seconds, you just cut out 2 years of time and 2 years of cost.
And time is something you don't ever get back. So saving it, I mean, what else is there?
Yeah. So just in like real objective terms, if it's $30,000 a year for a college, which is cheap these days, that's just books and tuition. That isn't all the other crap you got to pay for. That's $60,000 in 2 years. If I
Right.
could just start on my junior year and have that extra 60 in my pocket to
Well,
roll with, oh my
colleges
gosh.
are kind of businesses too, and they want to sell you all their products. I'm not ripping on education, but if they can sell you a inexpensive product for a really high price, they're gonna.
Yeah. And it's not about ripping on education. It's guys, the AI's here.
Yeah.
Realize
There's
what it
nothing
is.
stopping it.
Yeah, and realize where you can leverage it. Don't fight it. Where can you leverage it? Where is the opportunity now? Because it is extremely cheap to get to work it. Use it for your advantage. Whether you're applying for jobs, just doing your Excel spreadsheet at work, creating a project plan, all those things help. When I wrote up the first business plan for X7. And then I did another one for supply chain unlocked. I used to take 5 to 7 months to totally write it, totally research it. Both business plans literally took 14 to 15 minutes.
I don't doubt it.
I'm dead serious. It just 14 to 15. It told me and then I perfected the strategy. It rewrote it. It had the entire SWOT, who my competitors are, and then cost, and then where to go from there. And seriously, every time I've written business plans, 5 to 7 months. Anyways, I'm on my soapbox. Allow me to stay on it.
Well, a lot of us look at it as something that is running us over. And I always tell people it's creating building blocks that you can climb on top of. Just choose to change, to adapt. I'm confident that it will never replace people. It can replace tasks, but we'll come up with new things that we need. Hopefully, it will just make our lives smoother, richer. And I know it can go both ways, but I'm going to be positive.
No, it is. It just, who's going to get on board because you need to? Let's see here. Leadership challenges. Well, I mean, we're running long as usual, and you have a good conversation. What do you think the leadership challenges are in the transportation industry right now? Well, I mean, we've already covered the big three, right? Maintenance, compliance, and safety to stay on point with that. And how are they addressing them? It may not have to do with AI.
Well, since we're on AI, one of the things that I concern myself with the most is the preconceived notions about what AI can do in these venues. Everybody has a very different idea. They're going to be incredibly broad because it's so new. Most of us don't know what to think it can do, so we imagine that it can do all kinds of things. And those expectations kind of result in disappointment many times. And I think that that's when we're leading people through this, and I can't even conceive of how I'm leading people through it because I was such an anti-tech guy forever. But understanding that our preconceived notions need to be kind of abandoned. We watch, wait, and see what it's going to do and respond. But those preconceived notions create real barriers. People get stung on it in a hurry. They think it will do one thing, it won't do another, and they were wrong on both counts. It's not because they're ignorant. It's just because we don't know yet. I've got clients that I catch 90% of the issues in their system. I rely on them for the other 10%. Some people set it in motion and walk off. And then when something breaks, their preconceived notion about what it would do is shattered.
Yeah. That goes for any kind of tech stack, though.
Yeah.
You know,
it isn't any different than the .com boom.
Well, that would be like a Tesla on the version 1 of the I don't need to put my hands on the wheel.
I got to tell you, I rented a Tesla in 2020 in California. I'd never driven one before. And I believed at that time, was it 20? No, it wasn't 2014. It was 2023. I believed at that time that I was driving a self-driving car, but I didn't trust it. So I wouldn't let it go. Thank God I didn't trust it because it was not a self-driving car.
Okay.
I thought it would stop. And every time I tested it, it scared me so bad. I was like, no. Well, it wouldn't.
Yeah. No, that's a tough one. I had an Escalade. I guess it was in 21, and it had the self-parking mode. It just got too dang close, man. I just was not gonna. Because I'm a good parallel parker, so it was like real quick to go. I gave it like 3 times, and I'm like, dude, I am just playing with it. When I got the same skills, so I'll just do it.
Absolutely.
So what I think that speaks to is what your preconceived ideas are, but when it's time to play the game, and your emotions and your actual behaviors are something interesting to watch. Maybe we don't
Exactly.
need to get into all that, but anyways,
Well, it's
go
part
ahead.
of what we're doing here, so yeah.
Yeah. So the other part I think on leadership challenges that I'm hearing is there's this interesting area of conversation that I get into where there's folks that think they understand AI and they're in leadership, and I'm talking a CEO owner perspective, and they really don't, and they are not fostering a culture of AI. What do you think about that?
I have thought about this a lot, and to say a lot, I mean, probably 5 or 6 hours recently. I think it's hard for somebody in leadership to foster a culture of AI at this point. I mean, it has literally just breached the surface. We don't have an idea what's coming up. I really don't think we do. It's going to be big, it's going to be fast, it's going to be scary, but I think that it's hard if you're not immersing yourself in it. It's a little scary to immerse yourself in it, but it's something we have to do. We have to test it to uh, find out what our expectations should be, and we have to do it all the time. And so, once again, I think it's preconceived notions. Maybe they're not bringing up the culture of AI or they're not working in one out of either fear, some of us ignorance, or some of us because we're totally confident that we know what's going to happen. And I don't think that's a good idea.
Yeah, sorry, I'm compiling, if you will, what you said, and I don't disagree with it. Sometimes I just look for something to be devil's advocate, and I got nothing there. I can tell you what if you look at some of these other episodes, there's two of the individuals that clearly say, I don't know what it is. So I try to like lead the conversation along and say, have you prompted before? Or can you, anybody that reports to you or comes to you, it's as simple as saying, did you chat GPT it? Did you AI it? Whatever term you want to use it, or an email that's written to you. The question is not to piss people off, but to say, did you use AI before you sent that email? Especially if you're pissed off.
Right. Well, I used to
To be honest
experience
with
the
you.
same thing when I was first doing truck inspections. I often would ask other investigators, truck inspectors, what's the regulations say here? And they always went back and said, did you look it up? It's basically the same thing. Did you look it
Yeah.
up? And it's not to be malevolent or to be cruel or anything.
And I asked,
It's this is how this is done. I won't be here tomorrow. You're not going to be able to ask me. I might be
yeah,
wrong. What if I'm wrong and you took that and you wrote a violation on a truck inspection that placed somebody out of service for 10 hours?
yeah, that's a good way of putting it. Did you look it up? And it's interesting because the individuals I'm thinking of right now, really good guys, they just don't know how to speak about it. So how do they lead it per se? And my advice is
I think we're in a
continuously,
pause,
sorry, what?
but I don't know if it's going to, I don't know when or how it will slow down. So it's kind of it's like getting on a wave and not knowing how big it's going to be.
Yeah, that's true. But to create culture around it, you get your folks, if you're in a leadership position, to be thinking about it and just immersing in it because you're going to lead them and use it yourself. It's not that tough to prompt, right?
Right. It's not. And being willing to go back and check it and not depend on it initially. Actually, I would never depend on it if I hadn't asked it the same question before. It's just me. I go
Yeah,
back and check. But
excellent. All right, let's start bringing this to a landing now that I'm about 30 minutes past our original destination.
well, at least it says we weren't boring.
Yeah, no, it's Mike Rowe is serious. I don't know if you watch Mike Rowe's podcast
Love
much, but
him.
yeah, and he's, how what's his name? What's his buddy? His producer. I'll think of it in a second. They're always like back and forth heckling each other because he's supposed to end around 45 minutes, and often it's like an hour and 10 minutes, hour and 15 minutes, whatever it is. Anyways, good conversation, still good conversation. So bringing the plane to a landing, and Mike Rowe's term there. What do you think is going to be the biggest challenges for transportation over the next 2 years? And to help the wheels turn a little bit, please don't say getting drivers. That's been our
Mhm.
answer for 20 years.
It's going to be adapting to regulatory changes, drug and alcohol. And it's been this way for a little while. I think it's going to continue to be a major challenge is recognizing the risk that civil liability presents and then gauging what you're going to invest in preventing that civil liability. Because a lot of
Oh,
people budget based on what they're going to pay themselves, what they're going to pay their drivers, what they're going to pay for maintenance. All these things are super important. If you leave out that protection against civil liability, it's going to sting us. And I see it. There isn't a day that goes by that I do not see it. I testify in trials more so when I was working for the DOT, still a little bit, but it's the one that keeps me up at night. When I have to deal with a crash and I start going through the driver's logbook, I do an 8-day on the logbook like a post-crash investigator does. Um, I can immediately see how much time and investment the client put into protecting themselves against civil liability.
which in general is
I would say about 40% of the people when we first start working with them, it's zero. It's not a
until
line
you
item
start.
on their budget.
Got it. And last question is let's classify or define what is civil liability and how do you work with it? How do you bring that into your budget?
So the best example I can give is you've got drivers who are constantly running over their hours. So they're exceeding the hours of service limitations. If you're not doing something about it, if you're not taking the time to go in and audit those logs and you have a injury crash or a fatal crash, it can wipe out all the profits from the time you started your business till now. So that's the cost of not doing it. So you either take the time and you yourself already know and understand the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Regulations. You understand how plaintiff's attorneys work, and you guard against that by auditing logs, by disciplining drivers, documenting the discipline. These are things that you can do to prevent civil liability or to guard against it. Always landing on the side of compliance, because that is one thing that they pay a lot of money to do is civil attorneys or plaintiff's attorneys go in and they basically do a mock audit of your business and they can use every single violation against you.
Yeah,
And
even if it wasn't that driver, right? That was
right.
involved in that crash.
It's harder to do that, but you can. They absolutely can, because when they're asking a jury a question, the answer in the thought in the jury's mind is, are they in violation at the time of the crash? If the answer is yes, but you're not going to be able to explain to everybody on the jury, some people will understand what all of that means. So I'll just give you, for instance, a crash in Florida. I won't name the client. They got rear-ended. Elderly woman lost her life rear-ending the truck. The day before, the driver wrote up no taillights. There was no documentation that the taillights were ever fixed. So, in the fog, all they had to do was paint this picture that there's no way the elderly lady could see the back of the truck, and they lost. Well, it never went to trial. They still lost. So, if they had been paying somebody or they themselves taking the effort to audit that and ensure that they had documented the repair. If the driver repairs it, fine, but we got to document it. It's just a sliver of what I'm talking about.
Yeah. No, that's a good example though, because I can see all those kinds of maintenance things being obviously the spotlight in this case. But if they're not kept up with, the littlest thing kills you, and that's a case, or that's the example, right?
I always tell them if you didn't document it, it didn't happen. Well, you got to pay somebody to document it, and you got to pay somebody to audit that it was documented.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Sooner or later, this plane's got to come to an end. I just had like two more questions hit my head. In closing, any other further thoughts, advice you have for the audience?
I would say if you're in the trucking space, engage with AI on the subjects that you know you're weakest at. If it's ELDs, if it's dispatch, if it's our service regulations, whatever it is, just going back and forth with it is going to strengthen your position.
Let's restate that. Use AI for subjects you're weak at. At least it will get you closer to neutral. I
It's
twist.
exercise.
Yeah. All right. I'm like making notes and I got a transcript to do it for me. Anyways, I violated AI rules. Anyways,
Well, thankfully,
okay.
there's nobody checking for that right now.
Yeah. Is there any compliance with that shit? Anyway,
I don't think so.
not yet.
It's
Not
Wild
yet.
West.
Yeah, it's all good. All right, Richard, I appreciate your time. I really think the audience is going to find this very much value packed and stuff that they can apply or think about, especially in the area of the civil liabilities, or just use some AI to bring yourself up to speed. Hopefully, we encourage people to start using it, understand it, create a culture around it, things like that. With that said, thank you to the audience for your time, for listening. If you're still involved at an hour and 10 minutes, you're welcome. We got a lot of content for you, a lot of advice along the way, and we appreciate your time. And
Thanks
thank
so
you,
much,
Richard.
Teddy.
You're listening to Supply Chain Unlocked. Get exclusive insights from industry leaders on overcoming challenges, mastering logistics, and scaling your business with precision. Brought to you by X7AI.